you have this fantasy land that Trump was like, oh, the left thinks Abrego Garcia, I've treated him wrong. I surrender, left.
The only time he has been constrained is through the left and liberals banding together and going through the court system and public pressure. That's it. That's all we've seen.
Is MAGA a fascist movement? Just give me a yes or no.
That's an absurd framing, Kyle. That's mainstream media framing.
You can't say that MAGA is fascist. You can't. Wait. You really don't believe MAGA is fascist?
I am against Trump, totally. Okay, but why do you love Trump? Will be the next question. Okay.
Did I ask that? Cenk,
okay,
talk
so
about a
now,
straw man. I mean, you're making up stuff I never
let me
said.
answer your questions.
Come
What's
on.
the point of coming on here if I can't answer your questions?
I'm giving you plenty of time to answer, brother. You're making up stuff about me. I didn't say that.
Okay,
so you want to talk about straw men? You're inventing things on the
spot. It's a mistake talking to you guys. It's a mistake.
Welcome, Cenk Uygur, the Young Turks. We appreciate you joining us.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
So, oh, you want to explain? Go ahead.
Yeah, so I was just going to say, Cenk reached out to Kyle and I this week and said, hey, I think we got some things to talk through. Can I, let's have a conversation. So we said, sure, let's do that. And this kind of follows on the heels of a discussion/debate that you and I had back in December, where, the launching point, and you can, correct me if you don't think that this is a fair characterization of this conversation, but the launching point was a tweet that you had put out expressing some optimism about the Trump administration. So we can put that tweet up on the screen from Cenk to refresh everybody's memory about where we started. So you said, in November 29th, 2024, I've been trying to figure out why I'm more optimistic now than I was before the election. Even though I was so against the guy who won, I know now MAGA is not my mortal enemy, neither is the extreme left. My mortal enemy is the establishment, and they have been defeated. So over the course of that conversation, you explained to me that the reason you felt optimistic was really two reasons. Number one, as you say there, the establishment was defeated. And number two, you felt that the elements of the populist right and the bros would hold Trump accountable. And it kind of built to this crescendo where he actually turned to the camera and said, listen, guys, in a little while, you're going to be able to say whether I was right or whether Crystal was right. Let's go ahead and play that portion as a refresher. That is element number two.
I want to address something to the audience. Can I?
Sure.
Is this my camera here? Okay, yeah. So right-wing populists, it is now your job to prove Crystal wrong.
Go out and do it, y'all.
So she doesn't believe you. And by the way, almost no one on the left, other than me and Anna, believe you guys that you actually want to cut the Pentagon and that you could pressure Elon Musk and Donald Trump to cut the Pentagon. So are you going to prove the left wrong, or are you going to prove them spectacularly right? Am I going to have to come on here and apologize to Crystal for ever believing in any right-wing populist and say, oh, I was a sucker, those guys were liars. All they want to do was increase the Pentagon, have more wars, more corruption, and they never held Trump accountable. We waited 4 long years for them to hold him accountable, and all they did was kiss his ass and show that they don't really believe in freedom. They said all this stuff about freedom, but they never meant it. Mm-hmm. They said all this stuff about drain the swamp, but they never meant it. They said all this anti-war stuff, but they never meant it. We're going to come back on here in 1 year, 2 years, 4 years, and we're going to keep doing a check.
So, Cenk, that was kind of the context of that discussion. And just for the audience and for you, since there's two of us and one of you, and we don't want to be like jumping on all over each other, and maybe Kyle and I have disagreements on things, I thought I would kind of handle the first 30 minutes more or less. Kyle would handle the second 30 minutes. You've got an engagement you've got to go to, hard out in an hour, so that's the amount of time that we have.
We could do this for 4 hours if we had the time.
I'm sure we could, and it would be painful for all involved. But in any case, we've got a hard out for Cenk in 1 hour. We want to be very respectful of his time. So, with everything that's happened in Trump 2.0, do you still feel that original optimism that you expressed at the time, do you still feel that was well-founded?
Absolutely. And part of the reason I wanted to come on is to see if you guys are on planet Earth or live in an alternate reality. And I'm not trying to be insulting. I'm trying to figure it out. I'm being genuine about it. And Chris, I went back and watched our conversation from back then.
Yeah,
and
me too.
Yeah, you kept saying like things against Trump. And that's why I didn't even think it was a debate. It was a discussion, because I was like, yeah, I totally agree with you on Trump and the Republicans, et cetera. I was talking about the populist right and the independents that voted for Trump, the actual voters. And you saw it in that clip. I don't address Trump. I don't address any Republicans. I address the voters. So what has happened since then? Joe Rogan has come out against what Trump has done with Mahmoud Halil, with Abrego Garcia. Almost all of the MAGA hosts have come out against the war ranging from Tucker Carlson, Steve Bannon. Then you've got the politicians like Marjorie Taylor Greene. You've got Tim Dillon. I'm not sure you can name a right-wing MAGA host or independent host that's for the war in Iran. So I'm genuinely curious. Like, are you guys not seeing that, or does that somehow magically not count?
So, Cenk, I have the same question as to whether or not you're on planet Earth. Because, first of all, let me ask you this question. Do you think that Trump 2.0 is better or worse than Trump 1.0?
Trump is irrelevant.
No, he's not irrelevant, because I'll tell you why. Here's why. You expressed optimism about how all this would go. And the reason you were optimistic is because, hold on. No, we just saw your tweet, okay? The reason you were optimistic
I can explain the tweet.
Is because you thought these various groups and influencers would hold him accountable. So did they constrain his behavior, for example, when Elon Musk was running around with a chainsaw, slashing Social Security and gutting the federal government and gutting the CFPB? No, we didn't. In fact, we saw Joe Rogan host Elon Musk, not to mention Mark Zuckerberg and Mark Andreessen, to make the case for those things, okay? No accountability there. Did we see them constrain his behavior and hold him accountable when he launched a crypto shitcoin, the most corrupt scheme in American history, most likely? No, he did it. He's faced no accountability for that. You mentioned some dissent from Rogan on the kidnapping of college students off of college campuses. Is it the right that organized in opposition to that? No, it's the left and it's liberals. The only time that Trump's actions have been constrained at all in this Trump 2.0 era, which is vastly worse than I even expected when you and I had that conversation. I mean, we've got men in hundreds of people in a concentration camp. I didn't see any accountability from the right on that. I don't see any accountability from the right on an American city that is right now under invasion by our own troops, Marines on the ground in the city of LA. No, I don't see any accountability there. I see an administration that, as I predicted, the guardrails are completely off. And the only places where he has been constrained at all is when the left and liberals organized against Elon Musk, Tesla protests, showing up at town halls, etc., made him toxic. He had to be turfed out of the administration. And in the context of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, when you had mass left liberal resistance, even pushing Democratic leaders who were lame and weak to do something, Chris Van Hollen goes down to El Salvador, and the administration did something they did not want to do, which was to bring him back. That is the only time this administration has been constrained. It has had nothing to do with the right, had everything to do with liberals and the left organizing against him.
Yeah, that's hilarious. So you asked about 12 questions. I would love the time to answer it, but you didn't actually answer my question. Do you see a massive MAGA revolt against the war? And I'm being genuine. It's a literal question. Or do you just not see it?
Cenk, here's what I can tell you. Okay, Charlie Kirk, your buddy, he has already...
He's not my buddy.
He has already gone. He has already gone.
Thing to say.
He's already gone from. He's already gone from being critical of the Iran war to, guess what? He got a call from the White House, and now what he's saying? What's he saying? Oh, I trust Trump. Trump is the man for this moment. I know he's going to make the right decision.
The exact
Steve
quote
Bannon.
is.
Go
Can
ahead.
I give the exact quote?
Yeah.
This is from Charlie Kirk. Quote: "We must trust Trump in this situation." Go ahead with Steve Bannon.
Steve Bannon. Hold on. Steve Bannon. Put up element number 4. This is the Financial Times today. Steve Bannon says, if the president, as commander-in-chief, makes a decision to do this, the MAGA movement, the Marjorie Taylor Greenes, the Matt Gaetzes, we will fight it up till the end. But if he has more intelligence and makes that case to the American people, the MAGA movement will support President Trump. When Trump says that he gets to define what America first is, he's right about that. And so when you have Bannon, who also was critical of Elon Musk originally and got a call from the White House and said, cut it out, and he bent the knee, these people time and time again, Cenk, all they do is ultimately when Trump makes the decision, they bend the knee. We are already far enough into this administration to know there has been no constraint on his action that has come from the right. None. And we're in a war with Iran. Okay. We are already in a war with Iran. They didn't constrain him here. He's doing whatever the hell he wants to do.
Okay. So you guys just spoke for like 8 minutes doing a straw man. Okay. So you make it sound, and this is what's so harmful. You guys make it sound like I'm pro-Trump and I think that MAGA is just a bunch of angels who are secretly left-wing and they're going to magically agree with us on every issue. And the minute that Trump does something wrong, they're going to all push back 100%. And that's what I believed. I believed in rainbows and unicorns. Of course not, Crystal. Of course not. Well, you're trying to move them. Moving the other side is super hard. And so when you see something, anything where they actually agree with us, you have to encourage that. So when you say all the things that you said, is Trump a bad guy? Of course, of course. So if you're listening out here, guys, the framing of all of this is totally wrong. Like, we're having a conversation. Oh, do you think Trump's a bad? Of course I think Trump's a bad guy. He's totally authoritarian. That's why I voted against him. That's why I worked so hard against him. So even the framing makes me like sound defensive when you guys started with a premise that's out in la-la land. We totally oppose Trump. So now the second part of the premise that's totally wrong is, do I think that MAGA is going to revolt on every issue against Trump from day one? Why? Why would they? They love Trump. Of course not. That's not what you're looking for. You're looking for, is there one or two issues where there is actual agreement? And can we take that agreement and do something interesting to restrain Trump in those issues? So when you talk about immigration...
And so when has that worked?
Okay, hold on. Well, we're in the middle of it right now. So I'll tell you what it does.
We're at war with Iran, Cenk. Hate to break it to you. We're at war with Iran. It didn't work.
Okay. So, Crystal, let me finish. So when you talk about immigration and all the things that he's terrible on, I know what MAGA's movable on or not. I talk about it on the Young Turks all the time. If you think you're going to move them on immigration, you are nuts. They're not going to move an inch on immigration. So I fight him tooth and nail on that dungeon in El Salvador that they're sending people to, the Marines in the streets. Now, there's some issues like immigration where they haven't moved an inch and they never will move an inch, right? Mm-hmm. There's some issues like the Marines in the streets where a smattering of them are like, this is a little uncomfortable. It feels a little unconstitutional. It doesn't feel quite right. Those libertarian wing, remember, guys, this is super important. There's 77 million people that voted for Trump, right? If you treat them all the same, you will not be able to win elections. Why is winning elections important? Because that is how you take power away from Trump, away from the Republicans. So if you treat all 77 million as hardcore MAGA, you're going to push them away and they're going to vote against you. You can say, oh, no, but it makes me feel better. I have emotional release and my audience likes me more because I seem like I'm tougher on Trump. I was so mean to him. Yeah, but did that persuade anybody? I called all of his voters fascists. Yes, but did that persuade anyone? You're trying to persuade the people in the middle to come to your side. So what are the issues where we've got a fighter's chance? War. Okay, so now, do I think that on day one, they were all going to flip and then act and be successful in stopping all of the establishment, all the neocons? And by the way, were we successful? We were not successful in stopping any of them during Biden or any other Democratic administration either, right? So now there's a giant full-blown revolt from MAGA against this war. Now, if you're saying, no, I don't see Tucker Carlson, Bannon, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Posobiec, Cernovich, Candace Owens, et cetera, all of them opposed to the war, but you might not, because a lot of people watch programming that honestly just kind of gives them a misleading sense of what's happening.
Did you see Tucker, Trump saying, Tucker called me to apologize. He said he went too far. Did you see Steve Bannon saying, we're all going to fall in line ultimately? So I'm not talking about, hold on.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about the however many million Americans voted for Trump, some of whom are hardcore MAGA, and you will never move them. And I guarantee you, the moment that Trump says, this is the policy, they're going to say, you're right, sir, this is the policy, this is brilliant, and I am on board. Are there independents that can are there independents that can be moved? Yes. There are two separate questions here, okay? Number one is, we are in hell right now. Like, the level of damage that has been done to this country, done to the world from Trump 2.0 already is astounding. So the number one thing is triage, right? How do we stop?
That's what I'm doing.
How do we stop as much damage as we can? And the track record thus far in the Trump administration is the only time he has been constrained is through the left and liberals banding together and going through the court system and public pressure. That's it. That's all we've seen in this administration. The other question is, how do you win elections? So go ahead and address that, and we can talk about the election piece. But real quick, before you get in, as to the earnestness of this MAGA anti-war movement, put element number 3 up on the screen. Do you know? Tell me, how many Republicans have signed on to the War Powers Resolution?
1.
Is Marjorie Taylor Greene? No. Is Lauren Boebert there? No. 1. Thomas Massey, a libertarian who is, ideologically consistent, kind of similar ideologically to Dave Smith. Every other person here is a Democrat. So to the earnestness of this anti-war MAGA coalition and their commitment to blocking war with Iran, here is where the rubber meets the road. You have one Republican who is already at odds with Trump, who is willing to put his name on this War Powers Resolution. That's it.
So, Crystal, look, I know you don't mean it, but you keep conflating two things. The Republican politicians, including Trump, and the Republican voters, or the people who voted for Trump, okay? So are the Republican politicians corrupt? Of course they're corrupt. Are they gonna say, hey, Israel, I'll be your bitch, and I'll do whatever the hell you want me to do? Of course they are. They're completely owned by Israel, okay? So AIPAC, et cetera, the warmongers, by the way, let's be honest, is more than half the Democratic Party totally owned by AIPAC? Yes, right? So I know, oh my God, oh no, you can't be honest. You have to just say the other side is terrible and our side is angels. No, I'm not going to play that.
Would you rather be on the side of the 37 who signed onto the War Powers Resolution,
Crystal,
or the
I am on the side of the 37. Everything you frame is a straw man. I am on the side of the 37. In fact, Ro Khanna is my top ally. Bernie Sanders, Ro Khanna and I had the same exact strategy that you criticized in November when we talked.
That's not true.
You literally put me, and Kyle did the same thing. You guys put me in the same bucket as Bernie and Ro, reaching out to see if we can find agreement on the right.
But what else has Bernie done? What else has Bernie done that has been profoundly impactful? The anti-oligarch, the Fight Oligarchy Tour, which was an effort to bind together the left and the liberals to protest and to resist this administration, and that has been profoundly more impactful.
You're having a conversation with a person who isn't here.
Did the Pentagon budget get cut? Just tell me that. What's the Pentagon budget? Did it get cut?
You've now asked me 28 questions.
Did Don Jr. Did he do whatever with the generals? Did that work out?
All right, guys. Look, I came on here because look, you're generally fair. So you asked me 28 questions, and then let me answer them. So, and stop framing it as if I'm a different person. You keep making all these assumptions about who are you on the Republican side or the Democratic side?
I'm literally citing things that you said, Cenk. Like, I played your clip of what you said. Turn to the camera. Okay, hey, tell me if I'm wrong.
Crystal, I'm right here. I'm right here. Can I talk for myself instead of you?
You specifically held on the Pentagon budget.
At this point, borderline lying about me in every framing of every question. Can I actually be a human being named Cenk Uygur actually answer your questions instead of you framing me as a person that doesn't exist?
Cenk,
okay?
I played the clip of you talking, so tell me how I'm lying.
Okay. All right. So now, of all your questions, you have this fantasy land that Trump was like, oh, the left thinks Abrego Garcia's I've treated him wrong. I surrender, left. Come on, what planet do you live on? No, the courts are not left or right. The courts have held. I'm thrilled that the courts have held. And it was so important for the courts to hold. So if they didn't hold on that, he was going to have unlimited authoritarian power. And we are against that, no matter how many times people try to pretend that we're on the side of Trump. Listen to what I am actually saying, and you will see this every day on the Young Turks. I am against Trump, totally, okay? Now, okay, yes, but why do you love Trump will be the next question. Okay.
Did I ask that? Cenk, okay, talk about a straw man. I mean, you're making up stuff I never said.
Let me answer your questions.
Come on.
What's the point of coming on here if I can't answer your questions?
I'm giving you plenty of time to answer, brother. You're making up stuff about me. I didn't say that.
Okay,
so you want to talk about straw men? You're inventing things on the spot.
You guys, it's a mistake. So okay, now when you're talking about the Pentagon cuts, do you think that I thought, oh my God, Elon's such a good guy. And Trump's such a good guy, even though I've spoken out against them at every single turn. And then I magically thought, oh, I bet they become liberals overnight, progressives overnight. No, you put out the Pentagon thing so that they're stuck either way. That's why Bernie and Roe joined me, because either they cut the Pentagon, we go, yes, mission accomplished. We got a tiny, tiny amount accomplished during a Trump reign, which seemed impossible. Or they don't cut the Pentagon and they add to it. And then we all come out, as I did and Bernie and Roe did, and go, see, we told you. They're hypocrites. The leaders of your party never intended to cut the Pentagon. MAGA, they were lying to you. Now,
does MAGA care, Cenk? Did that work? Did MAGA care?
Yes, they do care.
No, they don't.
No, okay, Crystal.
I've seen zero pushback on the Pentagon budget. Let me just say, because I let you go on for a little while.
Oh, I know.
There
God
were
forbid I got paid answer one or two questions.
There were two tactics that were floated by me and by you in our conversation, okay? You said, I think it's great that Elon's responding to me, Don Jr.'s responding to me, like we have more of a chance. No, you said we have more of a chance with these guys to cut the Pentagon budget than we don't. And I said, nothing good's gonna come out of this. And so the important thing to do is to resist the project outright, because we don't want a bunch of the richest man on the planet running our government. And so we saw how this played out.
Yeah,
the Pentagon, hold on. The Pentagon did not get cut. And actually what happened is all of the liberal and left organizing against Tesla, against the Wisconsin Supreme Court race, against Elon directly, tanked his popularity to the point that Trump felt he was a political liability and the whole project had to be scrapped. So the tactic of let's work with them and try to cut the Pentagon budget failed. The tactic of let's resist this project outright and make the case and make Elon himself politically toxic succeeded.
So, Crystal, we do live in two different worlds. It's fascinating to see. It's amazing to see. So, number one, the project of saying cut the Pentagon worked. Why did it work? Because they cut the Pentagon, they magically became progressives overnight? No. It worked because it showed and highlighted their hypocrisy, that they weren't going to cut the Pentagon. And now I know, I get it, guys, especially if you're in the audience, you're not seeing it. I get it. And I'm not saying that as an insult. You're not seeing it.
So
because
you won because the Pentagon budget went up, even though you thought that the Pentagon budget would get cut.
Can I finish? Okay. So the reason you're not seeing it is because you're not engaging with MAGA, and that's okay. And you don't want to engage with MAGA. I got it.
Do you know who I am? Do you know the show I host?
I don't know if you know who you are.
Who are you talking to right now? Okay, I host a show with Sagar Enjeti and Emily Jasinski every day.
Okay, so Crystal,
no one in this room talks more to MAGA than I do, okay?
Yeah, okay. Okay, so are you saying that none of the MAGA voters were thrilled that they added to the Pentagon? Is that what you're saying?
They don't give a shit because Trump did it.
Elon and Trump.
No, you guys were wrong.
Elon and Trump and Don Jr., Cenk, lied to you from the beginning when they pretended like there was even a 1% chance of it. So when people told you at the time, though, resist them outright and point out that they're frauds.
Okay,
don't pretend like maybe they'll cut it. That was kind of the point.
You guys have a totally ridiculous, All right, let me not be insulting. We disagree on strategy. Okay.
Definitely,
so,
yes.
Okay, yeah. This whole idea that you're making a difference because Donald Trump is listening to the left, I can't believe you guys think that. That sounds totally detached from reality.
I'll make that case in a minute.
Why is Elon Musk out? Because people burn Tesla cars? I mean, Crystal, you said that in the intro. Are you serious? No, Elon's out because his policies were always deeply unpopular. No one wanted those cuts.
Yeah, and who pressed that case?
And they're in La La Land.
Cenk, and who pressed that case?
It was the left and liberals in the street.
Joe Rogan hosted him on his podcast to pump him up. Joe Rogan,
guys,
think about, but Cenk, think about this. Think about this.
Unbelievable straw man.
No.
Hold on, can I just finish?
Let me just finish my thought here, okay? Rogan hosted Zuckerberg and Andreessen to attack the CFPB.
Of course he did.
To gut and attack the CFPB.
Bernie Sanders progressive overnight?
No,
but you insane? No, guys.
Are you insane? You were the one who apparently thought that. Cenk, if anything is going to be populist, hold on, Cenk. Let me finish a thought. If anything, if the populist right stands for anything, you would think it would be an anti-scam bureau that is wildly effective. But no, and actually stood up against debanking conservatives. But no, what did Rogan do, and what did they cheer for with Elon with the chainsaw? Completely gutting not only the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, Trump gutting the National Labor Relations Board, but them defenestrating the ability of this government to enforce white-collar crime at all. Did MAGA care? No. They didn't. The only people that held them to account were left and liberals who organized against that and, yes, successfully made Elon so toxic that he ultimately crashed out of the administration. That's what happened.
So let me try explaining it this way and see if I can get through to you guys. So you keep telling me all the things that Trump did wrong. Of course he did. So I'm saying that it's a given that he's always going to do, for example, 90% of things massively wrong. And in the other 10% that he plans to do wrong, I'm saying we have a fighter's chance if we ally and we show hypocrisy, or we get allies. It's a win-win either way, okay? So for example, in opposing the war, either they become our allies and somehow at some point we stop this war, or we show, oh, you guys never meant it. Now you're the pro-war party, which makes us much more likely to win over independents and win the next election. But as I say that, you keep framing it as if I agree with them 90%, and where I think that I'm going to flip them overnight on the 90% where we disagree. No, there's no chance of that. So you can stop asking that question. They're not going to move on cutting the budget, and they're not going to listen that, hey, you know what, you shouldn't cut the malaria treatment in Africa, you shouldn't cut the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, because every dollar we spend there, we get back $20, et cetera. But if you go with your maximalist approach, guys, and you say, all right, I'm fighting you in a maximum way, so that means I'm never going to agree with you, I'm going to insult you at every turn, I'm not going to listen to you. So when you come in and you go, hey, guys, let's ally against the war, or maybe did you think that Elon's and I said this in every right-wing talk show that I did, and I said it at the Charlie Kirk event, I said, remember, beware of your own donors like Elon Musk. And then eventually they got aware of their own donors. Now, did they do it magically and overnight? No, it was mainly a fight between Elon and Trump, right?
Yes,
it was their egos.
Course. It had nothing to do with Charlie Kirk.
And the reason they are unpopular is not because the left's maximalist approach of yelling fascist at every Trump voter is working. It's because their policies are deeply unpopular.
And who explains that their policies are deeply unpopular? The left and liberals are the ones that highlight how deeply unpopular those policies are. So that's where the credit belongs.
Like I do. So
right, but that's not like Joe Rogan does, right? Joe Rogan doesn't do that. Charlie Kirk doesn't do that. They don't do that.
Said how unpopular they are.
Yeah, but my point is, Joe Rogan and Charlie Kirk don't do that, Cenk. They're not allies. Joe Rogan and Charlie Kirk don't do that. Steve Bannon doesn't do that. Sloppy Steve goes and gives Trump a hand job every day. That's the point, is that they're not allies. And by the way, even on the Iran war thing, they're lying. They are lying. We literally have the quotes right here. Charlie Kirk is already backpedaling. Quote, we must trust Trump in this situation. Steve Bannon, if Trump ultimately decides to bomb Iran's nuclear sites, MAGA would come around. That's not me speaking. That's Steve Bannon. The vast majority of the MAGA movement will go, look, we trust your judgment. We don't like it. In fact, we may hate it, but we'll get on board. Tucker Carlson called Trump and apologized, and he also said on his podcast with Steve Bannon, quote, I like Israel. I don't talk about Gaza because my audience got mad at me. He said, quote, watching Donald Trump, who at his core is sincere about peace, I feel for President Trump, and he just has to roll with it. That is not true. What he's saying is not true. These are not allies. They will immediately start moving the goalposts as soon as Trump starts bombing Iran.
Here we go again.
You're going to get this. You're going to get, oh, he's getting bad advice from the neocons around him. It's not a big deal. It's a limited attack. It's defensive. It's not offensive. This isn't like Iraq. There are no boots on the ground. The only people who are sincere that I will grant you, Cenk, is libertarians, so Thomas Massey and Dave Smith, because libertarians have a track record, like Ron Paul did, of being very principled, but everybody in MAGA, or 99% of them, will bend the knee, just like 99% of the ones in Congress have already bent the knee. Even Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's saying things that are against the war, she's ultimately not signing on to the bill to block the war.
Okay, so here we go again. So again, 90-10, guys. The framing of that question makes it sound like I think Steve Bannon and Tucker Carlson have good intent, and my God, they're ready to rebel on everything against Donald Trump.
I said Iran.
No.
I said Iran.
And I just answer a question.
But I didn't say that. I said Iran.
Okay. Yeah, that's okay. So I think that obviously 90% of the influencers, the hosts, etc., are going to stick with Trump 100%, right? Well, I wouldn't even say 90%. I'd say 75% or so Are they going to kiss his ass on everything? Well, of course they are. They're on the right, and their whole ecosystem is based on kissing politicians and leaders' asses. Now, let's be honest, not us and not you guys, but MSNBC and now a lot of online hosts on the left, their job is to kiss the Democratic ass, and they say, oh yeah, Joe Biden was young and dynamic, etc. So yes, we have the partisans, and they are, by definition, always going to stick with one side is great, the other side is the devil, okay? So now when you get to the 25% of hosts, because now the reason I moved it from 10 to 25, because you're including Rogan, et cetera. So is Rogan the same as Steve Bannon? If you think he is, that's just totally wrong. Now, do they agree on a lot of things? Yes. Do they agree on everything? No. Does Steve Bannon right about most things? No, he's horribly, horribly wrong about most things. So will they, when Trump says heal, will they heal? In the beginning, yes, and that's exactly what you're saying. But the reason they're having to heal is because they started rebelling in the first place. And Trump got mad, and everybody else got mad. And even today, you just go on any website. So Bannon is saying, don't go to war, it's terrible. Is he then saying, oh, Donald Trump? Of course he is, because he's on that side. And did we see a lot of left-leaning hosts go, oh, well, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are corporate guys and they're bad, but we have to go with them anyway? Yes, we did. But look, you have to be honest about what's actually happening. So if you guys are saying, I'm not trying to strawman you guys like you did, in my opinion, in the framing of every question. So I'm asking you, are you really, you're saying it's all fake, and you think that all these right-wing hosts are not actually anti-war, that this is, but they've been telling their audience now for months that, that the war is a terrible, let me ask the question, and that the war is a terrible, terrible, terrible idea, but, and how would that strategy work? So they get their audience totally against the war, then they capitulate to Trump.
Let me tell you how that strategy works.
How did that help them be pro-war?
Let me explain. Let me explain how
My
that strategy works.
answer to your question is yes, by the way. In 99% of cases, they are just lying, and they'll go and suck Trump off again.
So let me...
That's a real disagreement.
Jake,
they're already backing off, and the war didn't even start yet. We didn't even bomb the nuclear sites yet. They're already backing off.
How this strategy works, okay? They postured as anti-war because they thought it was a good electoral strategy. So now they have some track record laid of claiming that Trump is the pro-peace candidate, blah, blah, blah.
And why was it a good strategy?
Because
their voters are anti-war.
Okay, we'll come back to that. Okay, the polling is wildly at odds with you, Cenk, on that. We can come back to that in a second. But okay, so they this is the pro-peace ticket, whatever. And I think there were a lot of independents actually who were swayed by that anti-war message, which was completely at odds with reality and with Trump's first term. I think we all agree with that. Okay, so I think there were independent voters who were swayed by that. Charlie Kirk and others now, to maintain some credibility, they have to postulate, oh, you know, Trump is getting pulled into this, and the neocons are tricking him and confusing him, etc.
It's never his fault.
But we already know how this plays out because it's already played out. Trump called Tucker kooky and said he needs to get a TV network, basically saying he's a has-been. Tucker called him to apologize. That was the message, not just to Tucker, but to everybody else. Time to bend the knee, time to get on board. And they did. They did. Yeah. So we don't have to guess. It's already happened. It's already played out. Right, they've already bent the knee.
Okay, so we're now actually approaching an actual disagreement rather than the one that was foisted upon me that I don't like. So, all right. So, guys, you think that all these guys and their voters are all liars, and that they're not actually.
I don't know why you lump in the voters because
I'm talking about the voters.
Okay, well let's talk about
the voters.
Talk about the voters then. Let me ask you. Let me ask you a really simple question. Let me ask you a really simple question about the voters.
Yeah, well, you of course you like the Trump and the Republicans.
Which part? That's not what I said.
Stop saying it.
Cenk,
you said
let me ask a really basic question.
37 to 1 vote. You said how many Republicans voted for war powers? I said 1, Tom Massey, and you kept going like, oh, did you know that they didn't? I said yeah. I said I answered
because they're fake.
So but yes, their voters.
Let me ask you this question.
Saying that their voters are not anti-war at all? So be clear.
So let me ask you this question. Let me ask you this question. Let me ask you this question.
Are you saying they're actually liars?
Let me ask you this question. Which base, the Democratic Party base or the Republican Party base, which one do you think is more opposed right now to war with Iran? Which one?
The left. It's not even close.
It's not even close. Exactly. That's the point. And so
No,
if you are going to build, if you're going to build a grassroots, people-powered movement with bodies in the streets to oppose war, where do you need to go for those numbers? The left, because they're already there with you. And by the way, the MAGA base, the minute that Trump says we're in a war with Iran, they are going to overwhelmingly back him because they have every single time.
You have the numbers already. So
yeah, so put up 8. This is element 8, I believe, for us. These are the poll numbers. Now, there are other polls out there, I grant you, but this is among Trump 2024 voters. You ask them, do you support or oppose the U.S. providing offensive weapons to help Israel strike Iranian military targets? What we're doing now, 79% support. Do you support or oppose the U.S. taking its own direct military action, if necessary, to prevent Iran from developing nuclear weapons? That's exactly the framing that Trump is using right now. Support, 72%. They are more pro-war. So are there some who, don't want to get in another foreign entanglement? Sure. But overwhelmingly, are they going to back an Iran war? Are they already backing an Iran war because Trump says so? 100%.
Okay, so let's establish who we're talking about. So when you talk about Trump and the Republican politicians, 99% of them are liars. They're going to be pro-war. They're going to do all the terrible things that we're against, that we are all against, including me. Okay. Now, when you move to the media, I'm out on a limb, and I get it. If you grant them an inch, people will say, okay, that's it. You love them, and you're a Trump supporter, et cetera. But I'm doing it anyway because I'm being honest. I think 75% of them are unreachable, but 25% of them, at a minimum, actually will listen to you, have their own audience pushing them to be anti-war. They're not with us on all issues. They're not with us on most issues. But on war, I think that a significant chunk of them are with us. Okay, so when you go to Charlie Kirk's audience, for example, why is Charlie Kirk even dipping his toe into the waters of opposing Trump's policy on Iran and then quickly rushing back out? The quickly rushing back out is obvious. They're ass kissers, right? So the question is, why did he dip his toe in the first place? Because he did a poll of his own audience, and his audience said 90-10 do not help Israel go to war with Iran. 90-10. That's his audience, okay? So now you move to the last category, which are the voters themselves. That is where I am most hopeful that they actually are anti-war. Now, does that mean 100% of them are anti-war? No, not at all, okay? But I think a solid 50% of Trump voters, remember, a lot of them are independents, or a lot of them are in somewhere in the spectrum. At least 50% of them are actually anti-war. So what I'm seeing is all over social media, all over the right-wing shows, their own base in an uprising. Why do you think Charlie Kirk, Tucker, and Bannon are doing those things? Almost all of them are saying on their own shows, well, you guys are pushing me to do this, and yeah, I hear you guys. We were supposed to be anti-war, right? Now, guys, since this is like the first 6 months, are they going to go run back to daddy? Of course they're going to run back to daddy, right? So what we're trying to do is not turn all of them against all of Trump's policies instantly, because that is wildly unrealistic. You are trying to either flip them or show hypocrisy to the voters that you can reach on the issues where they agree with us. There aren't that many, but war is one of them with half of his base. So you guys think that if the left wing does a maximalist approach and we yell at those people, that those voters are going to interpret it as, oh my God, they were right. Since they're yelling at me, I will now go to their side. My strategy is go on those shows to talk to their audience and say, look, I'm not trying to trick you. I think you guys actually, a lot of you are actually anti-war. And I'm anti-war. And guys, you'd be surprised that they don't think the left is anti-war at all. They would have the same exact conversation in reverse. They would ask incredulously, who do you think is more anti-war, left or right? And they would all say right, and that the left is more pro-war. And I'm like, no, guys, no, we're totally anti-war. So Dave Smith and I did a coalition. Dave Smith did a great job on your show, Breaking Points. Fantastic. I agree with you. Libertarians are the first to peel off. And great, look, we peeled off the libertarians on the issue of war. Perfect. And we're doing a website, unitedagainstwar.com, where I'm inviting allies. And if it turns out only the libertarians come and the right wing does not come, okay, then that's what happened. So now, if you're saying that no revolt happened at all, it was all fake, all the media guys are fake, 100% of them, and all the voters are fake, 100% of them, and they all actually love war. Okay, that's a straw man. I don't think you're saying that. But you got to tell me what you are saying. Are you saying that none of their voters are anti-war, or a big chunk, or a small chunk, and that if we yell at them, they'll become more anti-war? Or if we reach out and say, hey, let's form an anti-war alliance, they'll be more anti-war?
So I'll tell you what I'm saying. I think that once Trump starts bombing Iran, those numbers we just showed you are correct. So like 70 to 80% of the Republican base will be in favor of it. That's what I'm saying about it. But I want to ask you, when Trump does bomb Iran, do you think the number among Republicans will stay at only 50% supporting it, or is it going to go up to 70 or 80%? Hey guys, this is just a little piece of an hour-long debate that Crystal and I did with Cenk Uygur about the best path forward and how to resist rising fascism in this country and Trumpism. It got very heated at different points. We have clear differences in ideological perspectives. And yeah, everybody got a little riled up, but ultimately I think it was good to get all these ideas out there. If you want to see the whole thing, sign up below on Substack. You're not going to want to miss it. I will say this. Crystal did the first 30 minutes. I did the second 30 minutes. We wanted to split it up a little bit so that it wasn't like her and I jumping in and alternating, because it makes it harder to flesh out a point. So she got the first 30 minutes. I got the second 30 minutes. You're going to want to see the whole thing. It was a lot of fun. So sign up below and enjoy. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop. And watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.